In, in this video, I'm going to explain the topic of encryption, and I'm going to tell the difference between two types of encryptions, symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption. So first, let's understand encryption. Let's say you have some important data. It can be any data, any important message being sent between countries, or some important message sent between armies during a war, anything like that. So let's say that you have this important message and you want to send someone this message. If you send this message in transit, any other enemy can read this message, any other unwanted entity can read this message. What you want to do is you want to encrypt this message or data, which means uh, change this data into some unintelligible form so that using this data, and nobody can understand what the actual message was. Nobody can know what the actual message was, and you can use this message, send this message, and in transit, even if someone is able to access this message, they won't know what the actual message is. And when this message is received by the other entity, they can decrypt the message, means convert this message back to the original form. Now let's understand symmetric encryption. To achieve encryption in symmetric encryption, there is a key. So what happens is, let's say node 1 wants to send some data to node 2, and what node 2 will ask node 1 is to use this key to encrypt this data. And once this data is encrypted, this encrypted data can be sent to node 2, and node 2 will use the same key to decrypt the data. Now here's the thing, only a node or an entity with this key can encrypt or decrypt the data, which means that if anybody is in transit and if anybody is able to access this encrypted data, they won't be able to decrypt this data because they won't have access to this key. Now, this works fine if node 1 and node 2 are ever able to physically meet and exchange these keys. But if these two nodes are on the internet and they are never going to physically meet, then the only option for node 2 is to transmit this key to node 1 through the internet or a network. And that is not a good thing, because if you are transmitting the key through the internet itself, there's no point to this because anybody can read this key in transit, which means we need uh, another sophisticated form of encryption, which is known as asymmetric encryption. In asymmetric encryption, instead of one key, there's a public key and a private key. So public key can only be in symmetric encryption. This one key was used for both encryption and decryption. But in asymmetric encryption, the encryption is only done by the public key and decryption is only done by the private key. What happens is that even if these two nodes are never going to physically meet, what node 2 can do is node 2 can send only the public to node 1. What happens is that using this public key, any node can only encrypt the data and not decrypt the data. So using this public key, node 1 can encrypt the data, send this encrypted data to node 2, and node 2, using the private key, can decrypt the data. And the beauty of asymmetric encryption is that only node 2 will have access to it key, and it doesn't matter how many nodes have access to the public key, they cannot use that public key to decrypt the data. And node 1 can use this public key to easily encrypt the data and set this data to node 2. That is the concept of encryption, and two major encryptions, symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption. Thank you.